My dad died 2 months ago, and I understand what you said to Lisa about when you love someone and then the non-duality. I get it, and I thank you for giving me this new perspective a while ago. So my question is it possible that instead of just becoming, going back to this one with everything, that a part of him, because he has been manifesting in some really specific and unique ways, that I know that it's him. So that would be nice if you tell me that.
Yes,
that's true.
You're wondering if your father has continued in some form,
way,
albeit not in his body. If there's some, if he doesn't just go straight back to infinite being, but there is some.
That would be good news for me.
Okay,
so I hope
understand.
You think your answer.
Yes, I understand.
Because it's important.
Yeah. I had a very interesting. I didn't mention it last night, but I had an interesting experience with my mother, and thinking about her this last week, and when I saw her just before she passed away, that she had Alzheimer's. She had Alzheimer's for the last few years. She had lost her eyesight. She had lost her mind, her memory. She didn't recognize any of us. So her eyes were closed most of the time. Even when they were open, she couldn't see. She could follow a conversation, but sometimes she would just talk, just go off and talk. And so I had the feeling that last time I saw her, that her eyes were closed. Her mind was obviously active still. There were still thoughts, because she would talk, and she would sometimes hear and respond. Sometimes she would just talk and go off. So I knew that there was, and she could hear. So there was still, her mind was still active with thinking and images, but she never referred to her body or the world, or she didn't know that she was in a home. She was not in pain. I don't think she knew that she was dying. She had lost she was not, we as her children and grandchildren, we all viewed her from the outside and thought, oh, Mum has Alzheimer's, these are her last days, she stopped eating, she's barely drinking. And these were what we were saying and thinking about her. But I kept thinking when I was with her, not thinking, feeling, I kept trying to feel, what is your experience, Mum? What is this like to be you now? I remember having exactly the same feeling when my son was born, in the first few years of my son's life, that all the adults see an infant or a child in a certain way, but that's not the way the child experiences their self. So I would continually ask myself, what is it like from Matthew's point of view, from the inside of him? It's completely different in the first few years of his life from what it's like from a parent or an adult's point of view. And I had this same feeling about my mother, that her internal experience was quite different from the experience that we imagined she was having. She's sick, she's not eating, she's got Alzheimer's, she's dying. I don't think she had any of those experiences. And it came to me that when she died, when she officially died, that she was not aware of it. I mean, when you fall asleep at night and you go from the waking state to the dream state, do you ever feel, I've fallen asleep? We never have the experience of falling asleep. Other people look at us and say, oh, she's fallen asleep. But do we ever have the experience of making an abrupt transition from the waking state to the dream state? Or is it a seamless flow of experience? It's a seamless flow of experience. We never have the experience, I've fallen asleep. Well, I don't think my mother had the experience, I've died. Because her own internal experience, whatever it was, she had already died to the world. 2 or 3 months ago, she died. She didn't know she was sick. She didn't know she was in a home. She didn't know who any of her children were. She just called everybody darling, whoever it was. The doctors, the cleaners, the carers, her children. It was just everyone was darling. Everyone was the same to her. When she passed away, I don't think she will have had the internal experience of dying, because I think her mind will have just continued unraveling. But actually, my mother's mind's been unraveling for quite a few years. But but in particular, these last 3 or 4 or 5 months, her mind was unraveling. She was losing connection to the world, to her children, to her body, to her. I think her mind will have just carried on unraveling in whatever way that was for her. I don't think at the so-called moment of death she just goes back to infinite consciousness. No, I think there's the mind. If the body, I don't want to go particularly into this at the moment, but if the body is the image of a localization of consciousness, then when the body dies, what is really happening? Consciousness is de-localizing. It is going back to itself. It doesn't go back to itself all in one go. Just as it takes time for consciousness to localize itself as a body, it takes time for consciousness to de-localize itself. And that there may be an interim period, a kind of dream state that takes place after the so-called death of the body, before going back to infinite consciousness. If indeed that mind does go back to infinite consciousness, there's nothing to suggest that it may not relocalize itself downstream, so to speak. So yes, I do think that your father's mind may continue unraveling, and it won't unravel randomly. It will unravel in a way that was consistent with whatever its activity was during his life. So yes, I think your father's mind will still be unraveling, but his being will remain where it always is, in your heart, as your being. You can't know what his mind is doing now, but actually, during his lifetime, most of the time you didn't know what his mind was doing. But during his lifetime, you did know his being. You knew his being as your being. That's the experience of love that you felt with him. That's the recognition that his being is your being. And nothing has changed in that experience now.
Thank you.